This week on Buffering, we are joined by one of the few people at Calix who is taller than me. And he's not only a towering in stature, but he's also a towering marketing intellect. And I want to welcome Joe Koheygi to the Buffering podcast. Joe is the Director of Customer Engagement and Subscriber Marketing here at Calix. And Joe and his team are responsible for all the great assets that we provide to our customers and is also responsible for working directly with our go-to-market agency partners. Joe, we're really excited to have you here, man. Welcome to Buffering.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me. Congrats on the podcast. It's been fun to sit and watch and listen, and excited to be a part of it now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We're really excited to have you here. I think we're going to get into a really fun topic today, and one that I know you're excited about and that Zach and I talk about all the time as well. But before we get into the details here, could you give us just a little bit more insight and background on what your team does here at Calix? And I'd love to hear, I think it would be great to share a little bit of your background as well. We think you have a really interesting story coming, not to step on your story, but coming out of a BSP. I'd love to hear, I think it would be great for folks to hear that a bit as well.
Yeah, of course. I definitely did. I spent almost 5 years at a regional ISP in the Midwest, telephone cooperative, serving six pretty large counties and in very rural in markets. But prior to that, I had no experience inside of telecom really. And my background is more on the technology side. I was at a tech startup for a good number of years, marketing agencies, and really spent the bulk of my professional career inside different marketing organizations. So coming to telecommunications at the BSP was different. The landscape is much different. The sophistication can be different. How we communicate with members or subscribers, again, just different. And so I learned a lot and tried to apply really those learnings from previous industries, bringing them into telecommunications and trying to modernize the way that service providers market to their customers in meaningful, differentiated ways. So that's what I do at Calix, and the team is responsible for go-to-market programs, our market activation, subscriber marketing portfolio, which is, all of the marketing assets, web pages, landing pages, which we're going to get into, and all the materials that, really any service provider, big or small, needs in order to effectively communicate and win in today's modern market.
Yeah, love that. And I know I'm going to pass it over here to Zach to talk about some stuff here in a sec, but I wanted to hit on a point there you just made around the, providers big or small. I think that's something that I've been really pleasantly, I don't want to say maybe surprised by is the wrong way to frame it, but when you started bringing a lot of these solutions to market, obviously there was an immediate need for the smaller service provider, for the person who's a one-person marketing staff or a half a person marketing staff because they're wearing multiple hats. That need was so obvious, but it's been awesome to see not only those smaller providers leverage that content, but frankly, a lot of our larger customers also, just because there's so much content that needs to be created. And whether you're small or big, and when you're big, you're probably creating more content. So being able to leverage the resources that people have access to it's just been really cool to see.
Yeah, it's been great, and I think the cool thing that we're bringing as a company to the industry as Calix with innovative solutions, we're translating that down through the marketing materials, the subscriber marketing library, what our success team does in innovative ways that whether you're big or small, you don't need to rely on speed only to reach your customers, right? So there's innovative ways that we can allow even the smallest to the largest service providers compete, differentiate, and evolve to meet the modern subscriber where they're at. And expectations are changing. I know we're going to get into that, but I really think that that's kind of at the precipice of where we're at as an industry today in 2025, is that things are shifting rapidly. And staying ahead of that is going to help you win in the market with your customers.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's talk about something that I think both Gabe and Joe and even myself are very passionate about. Gabe, I don't know if we've told Joe how much we geek out on this particular subject, but let's talk about landing pages specifically. And specifically though, I want to talk about a personalized landing page versus a generic landing page. Joe, can you talk to us a little bit about what you see with landing pages when we talk about generic versus personalized?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I mean, what is a landing page first, right? It's a place with which you send customers to land on. And it's really driven by your outbound marketing communications. It's where your call to actions go. So whether that's a URL or a QR code, or visit nebsp.com/this landing page, that's where you want them to go. And I always use the analogy, um, your marketing art is the invitation to the party, and your landing page is the actual party. So those two things have to match. Now, a generic landing page could just be something very innocuous to the end user. It just literally could be an offer, which applies to anybody. So you could use that and push a bunch of people to it, right? The problem with that is you probably lose some of the personalization, as you mentioned, but you also lose a little bit of that segmentation that you're trying to drive that customer into. And you lose the opportunity to have a more meaningful messaging on that page. That's where personalization comes in. Imagine sending out 5 different invites to 5 different types of people to join a party with 5 different types of activities, right? So if I'm going to send a value-based type offer to a parent, a work from home, or a gamer, well, those landing pages need to continue to speak to that customer in relevance, in context of what matters to them. And so it's largely the same format, it's largely the same structure, but the way your headlines, your body copy, and the subsequent attributes of your offer are going to speak directly to the segments, creating personalization in the sense of, this was made for me because you took the time to understand me before you sent something. There was something of value in there that resonated with a need or a pain point or an unmet opportunity that I have as a consumer. And when I got to the page, the landing page where you wanted me to convert, you sold me on the value of that, not on the speed and the price. That's the difference.
And Gabe, I'm going to need you to hold me back on this next question here because this could get a little heated. But one of my biggest pet peeves, working specifically in the broadband industry, but this is marketing in general, is when you have an ad or an invite to the party, Joe, and it takes you, Gabe, in our case, to the internet page or to your home page. Joe, can you talk to us a little bit about why that's a bad idea? And when I say bad idea, it's a terrible idea.
Well, I mean, I think you sugarcoated it pretty well. We probably could get a little more riled up about it, but for one, it creates a disconnect. And what you want is sort of this one-to-one action to take place. You sent out a particular piece of marketing. It had a clear call to action and an expectation set. It should. If it's a good marketing piece, it's going to do that, and it's going to get the customer intrigued, right? This is sort of awareness and consideration marketing 101. When they hit that landing page, or in the case of what you're explaining, Zach, if they hit the internet page, you've just broken that connection. It's a terrible experience. You lost the value prop. Now they're having to parse through your broadband tiers, which talk about speed and price. And maybe there's a couple of bullets down below that says, oh yeah, maybe we have managed Wi-Fi rentals, or a reference to your mobile application or what have you. Or maybe it's something completely different, like our triple play bundles. You've broken that connection of the expectation of what you were trying to deliver to that customer. So it's a terrible example just from a philosophical perspective of that messaging flow and the buy flow, right? So that's sort of the first thing. And I think just in general, again, you're taking them a step out of that process by deviating them to an internet page or the homepage. Worse yet, sometimes we see that, right, from some service providers that it's nebsp.com, and then it's up to the end user to try to figure out, where do I go next? Your job as a marketer is to create a frictionless path to convert. And the best way to do that is to skip those other pages and get them right to what you told them you were going to deliver.
And I want to go back to something here. I think, Gabe, you said at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned your one-person marketing team or your half-person marketing teams. I see that every day. It's something, there's all types of customers out there, but these smaller BSPs in our case often have that as their resource. So, Joe, not to talk you up too much here, but one of the things I like most is the landing page or the content within the ECB. The Calyx Web Builder is one of my favorites. That does all that heavy lifting for you, so the VSP can just within a few clicks deploy that landing page. And once you have your landing page, there's where your ads can point back to. No more do we have to go to the homepage, the internet landing page, or various pages like that. But even if you're not using something like that, I know various integrations we talk with MailChimp, HubSpot, they all have the landing page option as well that they can host. So there's so many different ways to do this. Even if you don't have a big marketing team, it doesn't take a big team to do this.
No, it really doesn't. And that's actually the beauty of the landing page. You strip out the complexity. Don't try to do too much. Go back to the original messaging. Who is it for? What am I solving for this particular segment? And then offer a solution. That's it. The page should be about a single focus of conversion, and scrub out all the other stuff. Don't try to sell them on the value of being a telco or a cooperative rather. And don't try to bring in a bunch of other things to confuse them. You got them to the party. Now wow them and leave them with the parting gift of your great service. That's really what those landing pages should do. They don't have to be complex. They don't have to oversell. You got them there. Now it's about capturing either the lead in some sort of form, an integration form, and that in the case of MailChimp, they do a good job of that. Or better yet, if you can actually push that into a service order directly into the billing system, that would be ideal in terms of an e-commerce type of experience. That's what customers expect. I don't know how many of you all have bought and purchased something from a Shopify site. You may not know it's Shopify, but that's the experience you're used to, and that's the experience all of our customers are used to. It's very easy. They come in, they get a confirmation, an expectation of delivery, and when that service or that product is going to show up on their front door, and that's what they're looking for.
Well, that's the expectation now, frankly, right? All of these companies have made it so now that when we're buying things online, that is our expectation. So, and to go back to something that Zach said a moment ago there, and Joe, you kind of topped up. It's yes, we obviously have resources to help people do this. There's lots of other places that they can do it, whether it's MailChimp or HubSpot or lots of other places to do this. But again, it should be, you're stripping away all of the extra stuff. So if your landing page is taking too much time to create, it's probably too complicated. And it's a good sign that, I probably need to spend less time on this than more, because it really needs to just continue to strip back to, what is that single goal? And that's actually the topic that I wanted to go through here next, is really kind of breaking down a lot of these topics that we've been going through and talking about, just digging a little bit more into each one of these. So if we think about the single goal, let's start with that one. And I think it's important to understand that a goal can be defined in a lot of different ways. It might be purchasing something, as you said, Joe, on a Shopify-like site. It might be signing up to stay in touch. It might be signing up for a newsletter. It might be filling out a survey. A landing page doesn't have to be to sell something. It could just be to drive some other action. But that landing page needs to have a single goal. If it's buy something and sign up for our newsletter and fill out this survey, we've lost the plot now, right?
That's
and it's
a lot to do on a
waters.
single page.
Correct. It's a lot to do. It's going to be more complex to create, and it's going to be, frankly, way more complex for the customer or the prospect to weave their way through as they're trying to figure out what the heck it is that they're even supposed to do. So, I'd love to hear your perspective, Joe, on, what is kind of best practices around requests or calls to action. What does that look like from a landing page perspective?
Yeah. No, before I do that though, you touched on something that we see a lot, which is trying to do too much. And I think that's why service provider marketers tend to default to their internet page or that home page. I see it all the time, right? You get to that home page, upper right-hand corner, get service. You go down a little bit further, there's learn more or buy now. You go down a little bit further.
Don't get us started on learn more, Joe. That's just Zach and I's most hated call to action.
And then, you get to the bottom and then there's the, sign up for the newsletter. It's like, what are you asking me to do? So again, I think the landing page can be used for a number of things, right? It doesn't need to be sales only. So thinking about a new builder, somebody coming into a new market, you might want to take interest as an example. So that landing page could be personalized to a community, to a census block, to a neighborhood, right? We see that a lot with, some of the, the fiberhood types or different providers who are doing that. We're going to take interest, which is really lead capture. So that's, the big thing that you can use that landing page for is build interest for your service. We see this a lot on the small business side. A lot of service providers are now going from residential into small business, but they're, kind of want to get the pulse of the small business community. So they're sending out surveys and different things. They go to a landing page. I just did this for a customer, and we listed out all the feature benefits basically of the Smart Biz solution and asked the community, which of these most resonate with you? It's a great way to do just sort of like crowdsourced, focus group, basically pushing people to a landing page to do that. Landing pages to promote limited time offers. Obviously, there's the main offers. It could be resources, a landing page for a parent's guide to, Command IQ, or a parent's guide to back to school for online safety. There's different things that you can use landing pages for to educate, promote, entertain, and also intelligence or business insights. So like the Smart Biz example I did. So there's a number of ways to use landing pages.
That educate one is one that I didn't have that in my head as we were thinking about this, but it's a really great point because you can be laser focused, because you can be really, succinct about what it is that you're trying to do. It is a great place to educate people as well.
Yeah, I think, look, most service providers, and I was, very guilty of this too. We're very good on the front end, the post-install side of the subscriber journey, which is finding new customers, acquiring new customers, and then lighting them up. And then we sort of take a step back. And there's this whole other side to the subscriber journey, which is onboarding, education, retention, loyalty, upsell, cross-sell, all that stuff, right? So again, you can use those landing pages for post-install engagement, but then also on the front end for more awareness, using it in your social media posts around things like, I'm going to use the back to school as an example because we're working on that right now, but top 5 tips for better parenting for back to school using the family plan, a value-based offer that includes parental controls and network securities and BARC and different things like that. Pushing them into a landing page that gives them more resources shows value. It shows commitment to their experience, not so much that you're selling them speed and price. That resonates, that captures their attention, and then goes, I need that. I want that, not so much because it's faster and cheaper, but because it solves my need as a parent to, use this time of year to, better my situation for connectivity as well as my child's own well-being, for that matter.
Yep. No, it's a great call out. And we touched on this topic a little bit already, but just to dive into this a bit more as it relates to conversion specifically. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned this earlier too, but like one of the primary reasons for landing pages is to drive conversions. And we just talked about what a conversion can mean. That could be, again, signing up for a newsletter, signing up for, filling out a survey, signing up for service. But we often see that when people have generic pages, they tend to throw all of this additional information in. Oh, we got to talk about our managed Wi-Fi program, or oh, we got to talk about this other service. And that really hurts conversions. Can you talk to us about that distraction, how distractions can really hurt conversions, and why you want to remove those distractions?
Yeah, you do. And then that's why it goes back to having an offer strategy. Too often we see service providers uncouple or disaggregate their service with, well, it's our broadband, it's our managed Wi-Fi, and it's these other add-on managed services. And then when they get to the landing page, they try to basically upsell every one of them as it gets there, and it creates a ton of confusion and distractions. So having a good offering strategy makes your landing pages more seamless, more better continuity as you come in and say, here's an extension of that marketing piece, like I said, whether it's a social media post or you did a direct mail and then you got them to the landing page, now's your chance to basically prove the promise that you gave them in that marketing piece and keep the distractions to a minimum. Show them how you're going to do it. We're going to do it by custom installation by our team. We're going to come in and take care of all the headaches, and we're going to give you the Command IQ app. And here's how it works for you, mom and dad, or here's how it works for you, gamer, or work from home pro. These are the key things that you can zero in on. Leave all the other stuff aside. Don't try to just pack in feature benefits. Elevate value-based attributes of the service that are relevant to the end user who you built the landing page for, and leave the other stuff as learn more. That's where actually learn more does come in. If someone's they want to just drill into the nuance, then you could do a learn more CTA from the landing page. I don't know.
Don't try and convince me that learn more is a good idea, dude.
Dang it! I thought I could.
I think Zach, didn't we decide that education is the only place where learn more makes sense?
Maybe an educational institution could squeak by, but even then, what's the outcome of your education? I keep going back to the outcome. We've talked a lot about that, but one of the things we keep talking about is specific campaigns or personalized campaigns. Joe, you mentioned the work from home, the parent, the gamer, these different personas that we often talk about, these different landing page. When you're driving traffic to these landing pages, how many types of ads should you be running? These are 3 different personas there. Is that 1 ad, 3 ads? But can you talk to us a little bit about how those invitations to that party, as we talked about, should be personalized in addition to that landing page, just to bring everything together here?
Yeah, so I think, look, you need to create an omni-channel approach, basically, and I know that word's been used ad nauseum, but really, you shouldn't genericize your outreach in order to broadcast or capture a wide net of the most people just because it's efficient. You can take the same social ad, quickly personalize it to a work from home gamer or streamer or senior ultra tech savvy person by changing a background image and a headline and a little bit of body copy and drive them to their dedicated landing pages. I do think you want to have a cadence, right? I don't think it's just a one-time post. A one-time social media post to a prospect is going to get you a little bit of reach, but is it going to get you the conversions you need? No, probably not. What you do need is a campaign strategy that says, over the course of the next 3 months, we are going to take these channels and sequence communications along each of those. Zach, we just did this for a customer where it was social ads and Google ads first. We then went with email. So this would be prospect emails for acquisition. From there, it was postcards, right? So we did direct mail as the last touch point. And there were 3 campaigns based on a series of segments that laddered to family, sort of a cost-conscious segment of the subscriber base, and then the higher end of the market along folks who were more tech savvy. And those streams are what you should do over and over and over again based on the segment you want to talk to. You want to create continuity in that messaging for them across as many channels as is required to find them. Right? You got to go where the eyeballs are.
Well, and what I think is really smart about that strategy that you just talked through, Joe, so there's a couple of things to unpack here. You're using low-cost tactics at the beginning to determine what messaging is resonating with the customer before you move to some of those higher-cost tactics. And I think direct mail can still be a super effective strategy. We see tons of broadband service providers who can use that to great effect. It also can be an extremely expensive and wasteful strategy if you're not thinking about how to segment and then convert, to your point a moment ago. So testing some of those with lower cost strategies like targeted social ads, like email, and then driving it back to more expensive tactics, I think is a great way to do this. The other piece that I really wanted to make sure we drill down on here is the tracking of the effectiveness of the campaigns. And this to me is probably one of the biggest reasons why landing pages are so important. We talked about the invitation matching the party. Well, if you're investing all of these dollars, I almost said spending, but our CEO, our old CEO, Carl Russo, always used to yell at us that we don't spend, we invest. So I'm going to say invest here. And I agree with him. That's a good way to think about it. But so we invest a bunch of money here in a marketing campaign. Well, at some point, hopefully somebody's going to ask you, is this an effective campaign or not?
Yeah.
And if you have these unique landing pages set up, you can have a really good understanding of which ones are being the most effective to drive not only traffic, but also conversions. Which pages are people actually converting off of? So I'd love to hear your perspective on that, Joe, just a little bit around like, how should people be setting this up to make sure that they're able to track all that activity all the way to the end and ensure that they're able to go back and have those conversations from an ROI perspective internally?
Yeah, it's where the rubber meets the road, really. You can have the segment data, you can have everything at your fingertips, and you can start marketing quickly. But if you can't track and you can't pull a through line through that buy flow to find out what's working, what's not, where the conversion happened, I'm not talking even attribution. I'm just talking about getting a new customer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part. So I'll go back to the beginning to get to the end. So just bear with.
We'll bear with you. It's fine.
An offering strategy is the start. If we go back to the beginning of this conversation, it was, tell me the difference between a personalized and a generic landing page. And I went to offering strategy. That personalized approach to your offers that said, I'm going to solution around a subset of my customers. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3. But by doing that and committing and then investing into those offers with your marketing, it will set the foundation for your ability to track in an effective way. What do I mean by that? Let's not just talk about your gig speed, your gig tier. Let's talk about your family plan. Let's talk about that work from home plan. I know who I'm going to go target because I have the prospect data that matches my segments to that offer. I then can create a dedicated landing page for the work from homer. When I go to Facebook to do my ads, I can label my ad spend or my ad set to the work from home plan and capture that. So I have a one-to-one relationship in terms of those engagements and the reach for that ad set. When I get to my landing page, I can see that traffic to the work from home page. So there's another metric, my forms, whether that's a MailChimp form, a HubSpot form, or a billing form that goes right into the billing system. I can capture how much activity and interest is being generated from that lead capture form and associate it back to my original offer. And then finally, whether you use promo codes or some other field in your billing system to say, yes, this person is now on the work from home plan, I now have a complete 360-degree view of where that lead originated for my prospect data, all the way through all of its touch points and back to the billing system where I get to claim a successful conversion.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to do that with your gig service, your data and metrics will be very polluted with a whole lot of other activity, and you'll be very unclear as to, did that marketing actually drive that conversion, or was it just happenstance and organic?
I feel like we're touching the third rail. We're here with attribution, and conversion topics,
there, yeah.
but I think it's a really important conversation, and it's one that Zach and I have fairly frequently, and Joe, you and I have had in many conversations as well. Attribution to me is a myth. It's so difficult. And yes, there are very expensive tools that you can use that are going to be, very good from an attribution perspective. Most of the customers that we work with, one, can't afford them, and two, just don't have the amount of traffic to be able to make that type of attribution make sense. So I think, unfortunately, this is where marketers sometimes get a little bit too focused on the data. And I'm a data-driven marketer, right? Like that is my background. But attribution becomes this like myth that we want to be able to track to say, I sent this email and I know that this email was the thing that resulted in that person converting and signing up. that's BS, man. Like there's
I
just
did it.
no way for you to do that. You tried to do that at some point?
Yeah, like I mean, the amount of systems you need to pull that in and the data
Hmm.
science behind it to be able to associate first, third, fourth, last touch attribution that can clearly say this activity drove that conversion, therefore associate my ROI to the email. You're missing the plot. The plot is don't
Yes.
overcomplicate it. Think about your offers and your campaigns writ large as the mechanism for which you're driving the conversion. Don't get hung up on where did it come from, just that it happened. And you have a clear line of sight to it that it happened within this campaign. This campaign was these channels delivered over this amount of time that converted these amount of either new customers, cross sell, upsell, or other, maybe it's a churn metric. That's all you need. You don't need to get hung up over the attribution side. So think of it as more of a campaign metric, a global campaign metric that took place across a number of different touch points.
Gabe, as we wrap up here, there's just one thing I want to kind of shamelessly plug here, but I feel like in some of these episodes, it might come off as we're calling your baby ugly, right? You're doing everything wrong. And as the success guy on the call, one of my colleagues posted a video on LinkedIn, and he talked about he was getting ready and he had some hair sticking up, and his daughter didn't want to tell him about this. And at the end of the day, it's about why didn't you tell me? Because you don't want to get laughed at. And at the end of the day here, this my invite for everyone listening is reach out to your success team here, reach out to myself, and we can walk you through a lot of what we talked about today, how to optimize your landing pages and your ads to sum it up nicely to make sure that invitation matches the party. I think that's a great way to put it. And of course, with the Catholic Success team, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out, Zach. And you're right. I mean, we're not trying to, this isn't about throwing shade about what people are doing. It's about how do we make this better? And, again, it's, we work with folks who oftentimes have small teams and or half teams and those sorts of things. And so, it's really hard to stay up on top of this stuff all the time. Right. And all of these different things. And that's why Zach and I really like to cover these different topics and bring experts like Joe on here who can provide their expertise around these specific topics. Also, we don't have all the answers. I say this all the time. We do not have all the answers, but I get my job, my regular job outside of podcasts. And since I don't really get paid for that, I guess I can't even call it a job. But, my regular job, I get to talk to broadband service providers each and every day who are doing these things, who are, either really crushing it or maybe struggling with a particular thing and wanting to change something. So that's why I love these conversations, just because I feel like we can hopefully bring some of that expertise from others back into the conversation to share with a broader group of people.
Yeah. Look, I think everyone wants the new shiny object and they want to chase trends. What we just talked about today is really foundational
It's
to every.
Yeah, it's fundamental, right?
It's
but
fundamental.
It's so important.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be hard. I think that's the thing that I want to get across is look, your landing pages don't need to change every day. Maybe you change them twice a year. You have an offer strategy. That offer strategy applies to two things: your acquisition and then your a lot of your ARPU activity, which is really the cross-sell upsell side of it, where you want folks to take higher value service tiers. Great. Once you establish that, now you can push against it. You can execute against it. You can see what's working, change, adapt, but you have that fundamental underpinning of, I know who to communicate to, the channels with which I can drive ads and communications into, where to drive them, how to capture those, and then how to report on it. And you just sort of rinse and repeat and work that out over the course of the year. And so that's all it really has to be, and that's what we're saying. But again, to your point, Zach, is be a little more strategic about it. Make sure your party matches your invites, and track, rinse and repeat. So I think that's my message for today, and we're here to help. Zach mentioned success, the market activation, subscriber marketing materials that we have, landing pages, templates, you name it. We have a lot and can help you make that even easier.
Yeah, and as we kind of wrap up the conversation here, I want to go back to something you just hit on there, Joe, is the strategy component of this. And this is something that we maybe don't talk about enough, but a strategy isn't every single week. There's tactics that are done to work towards a strategy. A strategy is, and I guess Zach, we did talk about this a little bit when we were talking about V2 moms and things like that a few episodes ago. But we were talking about, what you're talking about, Joe, is setting a strategy for 6 months or 12 months, right? It can't be something that changes all of the time. And if you're switching your strategy all the time, you don't really have a strategy. So being able to say, these are the things that we're working on as an organization for, again, the next 6 months, the next 12 months, and then what are all of those tactics and activities that are going to support that strategy? That's how you're going to be able to be successful as a business. And so much of this, I think the conversation that we had today was just thinking about, like you said, those fundamental, those foundational things from a marketing perspective that are going to help support that strategy as you're looking to grow your business, provide a better customer experience to the folks that you do have, and make sure that you're right sizing and all of those things for folks into different services as well.
Well put.
Well, Joe, thank you for joining us on buffering here today. And for those listening, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates, be sure to connect with us all on LinkedIn.